Welcome to The Point. I'm Eric Mitchell. We've all been hearing about the vaccine that finally arrived. No, not the Trump vaccine, the regular vaccine, the one that doctors and scientists created. It's here, and many Americans, as of this recording, have started receiving the shot. Now, not all of us, and when I say many, I mean frontline workers and the elderly. Unfortunately, I have to report that members of the White House have received it and members of Congress who don't need it, and I don't know why they jumped to the front of the line.
Every one of those vials that is being used for a congressman and senator that has been doing nothing and that hasn't been on the front lines is another vial of vaccine that isn't going to a nurse.
But this has happened. But we're not here to talk about this. No, let's talk about people who, like I like to call, prick me with your best shot.
Life during COVID feels like we've pressed pause, and it won't start again until
we have a safe and effective vaccine.
The vaccine
that is safe and effective.
But even when that time comes, many people won't take it.
At the beginning of December, a Gallup poll said that over 42% of United States adults said they would not get an FDA-approved coronavirus vaccine.
I have plans not to get a COVID vaccine.
You can't buy a good immune system.
I would never put a vaccine into my body.
Period. That's down from the peak of 50% in September, not in December, because that would be weird. That means the study would be wrong. So it's down a little bit, but there's a lot of concern still from public health officials with this still being at 43%. I went to look into this. There are several reasons that folks are, the people's confidence isn't really there. Let's just face it. We don't have a lot of answers. This was rushed. The person who shared it the most with us was a crazy person who didn't talk about it much. So a lot of it's down. So this is hard truth. So 37% of those in the Gallup poll said they wouldn't get vaccinated or worried about a rush timeline, which I think I fit into that. 26% said they would wait until it's confirmed it's safe, and 12% they said that they just don't trust vaccines, period.
I personally decided I'm definitely not going to take it.
No matter what, you're not going to take it.
No matter what. I believe I'm a healthy, strong person. It's relatively new. I'm in general a little skeptical about what I want to put in my body.
And that is despite 9 pharmaceutical companies, including frontrunners Moderna and Pfizer, pledging to hold their products to the highest ethical standards and sound scientific principles. And in fact, everybody's favorite doctor, Dr. Fauci, has also tried on every network and anywhere he can talk, bless his little elf-like soul, that he is goes around reassuring the public that the processes did not compromise safety at all, nor did they compromise scientific integrity.
I feel extreme confidence in the safety and the efficacy of this vaccine, and I want to encourage everyone who has the opportunity to get vaccinated so that we could have a veil of protection over this country that would end this pandemic.
So what he's saying is you won't grow a third head or have all those side effects that you hear when you see all these other things that are created by pharmaceutical companies, to cure the depression, it causes suicide. That's a crazy side effect when you're trying to cure depression. But hey, anyways, so at the very end of the COVID-19 vaccine supply chain are injectees. And the WHO, the World Health Organization, estimates that over 60 to 80% of them will need to be immune for a population to hit herd immunity.
Is it the right way to think about herd immunity in the context of COVID to say, the vaccine is far away, why don't we just let everyone get infected?
We think it needs at least 60 to 70% of the population to have immunity to really break the chain of transmission. If you allow this to happen naturally, it will take a long time, of course, but more importantly, it's going to do a lot of collateral damage. So even if 1% of people who get infected are ultimately going to die, then this can add up to a huge number of people if you look at the global population. And that is why we believe it's not a good idea to try to achieve herd immunity by just letting the infection run wild.
Remember, we've heard this a lot from the Trump administration. We just haven't had it. They haven't had it even at the White House. Instead, it's become a COVID hotspot. But establishing public trust in these vaccines will be the next major challenge that we're facing, especially as it's a week old here in America. We were not first. The UK started. We let them go first, and then we went.
We've got to make sure we engage the community. There was no compromise of safety, nor was there compromise of scientific integrity.
And more vaccines are coming. But the next topic that I really want to talk about, should these shots be mandatory? Going back to work. We know other places. Let's talk about that. So there are a lot of businesses out there that want to get their employees back. They're over the remote workforce. Well, it's hard to believe people actually want to go back to an office when we've all kind of enjoyed the remote life. And I know that this, in the military, it's become mandatory. Shots are already being delivered to our service members around the country. Now, for U.S. businesses that have been work from home since March, the recent positive developments about getting this vaccine out landed on an opportunity to get the band back together, right? Get all their employees back. Employers could simply ask for all of their employees to get vaccinated and return to the office. And bid adieu to those daily Zoom calls that last 40 minutes or longer, or if you're one of those companies that does the 40-minute cutoff because they're too cheap. But the question that we have that been asked is, can employers require you to get vaccinated? And the short answer, depending on where you live, is yeah.
I've been talking to lawyers across the country, and they all say that their corporate clients are reaching out to them in record numbers to ask what they should do about the vaccine. Some are considering giving cash bonuses to employees who opt into getting the vaccine.
And there are exceptions for people with disabilities or those who sincerely held religious beliefs against vaccinations.
And the answer to that question is generally speaking going to be yes. Because employers set the terms and conditions of employment, employers are going to be able to require that their employees get the vaccination. Now, that said, there will be exceptions to that. An employee may ask for an accommodation under either the Americans with Disabilities Act, asserting that they have some medical condition that prevents them from being vaccinated, or they might claim an exemption under Title VII, claiming that they have a sincerely held religious belief that would prevent them from being vaccinated.
Now, labor and employment attorney Michael Roche told Business Insider that the safest legal track is for companies to strongly encourage employees to get vaccinated. Now, it's interesting that people tell us that because we'll talk about the military. Now, my DoD sources at the Pentagon told me that at first the military won't make these mandatory. Well, even though a lot of people are already getting them in the military because of simply the supply constraints that we have. But all immunizations are mandatory, barring medical exemptions. So the DoD actually gave a report, and it expects over 44,000 initial doses of the vaccine, which will initially go to 13 U.S.-based sites and 3 overseas, where officials have determined there are both conditions to store them properly, as we've heard how crazy the conditions are to store these, and enough of the highest priority personnel to get these. So it was interesting. We've heard from different people. I'll finish with this. We spoke with a labor and employment lawyer, Jay Rosenbleb, and he advises the company to A, let workers get their shots on company time, B, and make sure everyone knows senior leadership got poked, and C, if the company has a union, ask its leaders to encourage vaccination. Now, we've all been asked the question since March, when will life return to normal?
We're talking about getting back to a degree of normality which resembles where we were prior to COVID. It's going to be well into 2021, maybe even towards the end of 2020.
And finally, this rough timeline has actually started to take place. So here is the best case scenario. As we know, on December 14th, the first immunizations happened. And according to Operation Warp Speed, he said that he expects about 20 million Americans to get vaccinated during this month of December. Now, the next big date is just January 31st, not January 20th, where we get a new president, but January 31st, 2021. About 50 million Americans could be vaccinated by this time, and grouped in with those who've recovered from COVID-19, over 30% of the population would be immune.
Yeah, there are several vaccines in the works, and the next two that we're probably going to hear about in January are AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. They work totally differently. They don't use the mRNA. use a viral vector, but that's a pretty standard technology for vaccines. We just don't know how effective they're going to end up being. I'm hoping they'll be in the same 90% range, but we don't know yet.
February, March, about 30% to 40% immunity. According again to the Dean of Brown's Public Health School, the spread will become meaningfully slower. I can speak, I swear. And infections won't be self-sustaining. April and May, with a widely available vaccine, late spring is when we could see the pandemic truly start to wind down and life return to normal, well, so-called normal, but what even that means is still very unclear. Will we still have to wear a mask? Here's the bottom line, folks. While actually seeing this timeline on paper and hearing me tell it to you may make your heart skip a beat, experts like Dr. Fauci and others warn that the next few months will be challenging for controlling the spread of COVID-19 as it feasts on our winter weather where we already have so many. Masks, social distancing, and other pandemic-era public health measures will be necessary to stomp this vaccine out. Now, we are lucky that we've had some amazing companies. There's a lot of tech companies also behind. So we got to give a shout out to IBM, Oracle, and Salesforce, the big three who have quietly behind the scenes donated a lot of technology to help get this out. I know we haven't heard much about them because the war on big tech from our current White House, that's leaving in less than 30 days, hasn't wanted to share this with you, but I wanted to give a special shout out to the folks at Oracle, IBM, and of course at Salesforce for their awesome job behind the scenes doing a great job. Hopefully this answered some of your questions about the coronavirus and how the vaccine is going to be pushed out here in the near future and who's going to be getting it. If you have any questions, of course, consult your company. I'm not an attorney, nor do I speak for your state, nor do I know. If you have an at-will state, you're on your own when it comes to getting mandatory vaccinations. As always, we'd like you to smash that subscribe button and make sure you share our social. Check out the shows that we have in our playlist that will appear right after the show ends. Make sure you follow along. Follow the shows. We have a whole series dedicated to coronavirus so you can keep up to date, and we do update those as we need fit. So far, we have about 5 of those shows done, so you can learn all about COVID from beginning to end. I'd love to share it with you. Make sure you spread that around. Don't spread coronavirus, but spread that playlist around. And also make sure you share us on social, where you could find us at To The Point TV or To The Point with Eric Mitchell on your YouTube and Facebook. As always, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.